Heavy footfalls rang off the reinforced gantry, filling the gloomy chamber with deep echoes. These echoes fell in time with the twin heartbeat of Grestmel Khol, 14th Legion Mortificator Prime, who purposefully strode down the raised walkway that bisected the room. With each passing second, blurts of data were being transmitted from teams of servo skulls that moved between the 5 towering Ironforms that stood immobile, preparing them for reawakening and rigorously scanning their biosigns. Of the 6 stasis bays that filled the hexagonal room, 1 stood vacant. Khol paused momentarily, eyes fixed on the dusty space once occupied by his sworn brother, Ancient Verdane, a son of terror cut down before the heresy and spared death only by the convalescent Aegis a contemptor chassis provided. Despite his limitations, Verdane had immediately railed against Mortarian's oath-breaking, incredulous and shaken that his gene-sire was capable of such an irrevocable betrayal. In the new order of things, this could not be allowed. Khol was ordered to cleanse Verdane's sarcophagus, wiping out another kernel of insurrection in the ranks and unburdening the Legion of an unnecessary relic and stark reminder of ages past, before the Death Guard had followed Mortarian into enlightenment. Several new icons resolved on Khol's overlay, detailing the slow and delicate process required in reviving the veteran warriors. His reverie interrupted, Khol was brought back into the moment, diligently absorbing the streams of data and resuming his course as before.
Hello everyone and welcome to my project Retrospective number 9. In today's episode we are going to be taking a closer look at my Mortificator Prime for the Death Guard, a chap called Grestmel Khol. Now you would have heard his background just now. Now these guys essentially are very important within the Legion structure for looking after dreadnoughts. Okay, dreadnoughts have been around throughout the course of the Great Crusade, and of course the fractured minds of some of the older members of the Legion who have been interred in sarcophagi will need a lot of attention and looking after, as well as the Ironforms that take them into battle. Now this chap is armed in Tartarus armour, so he can obviously run to try and keep up with his very large brethren, but he essentially shepherds them in war. He gives them, almost confers a sort of feel no pain save onto them as well. Now Mortificators are a great little unit, a great little individual console choice I should say, because they, like I said, give that save to your dreadnoughts, like a feel no pain. They also allow your dreadnoughts as part of a unit to split fire, which is extremely useful, so you can be very efficient about the loadouts you have for your dreadnoughts and where they're targeting precisely and what you want to try and get rid of in the hull, on the hull rather. And also these chaps cannot be targeted separately by enemy fire, so they'd get picked off as a result of template fire, barrage, all that kind of stuff down the line. Now this guy was an absolute labour of love. Really enjoyed putting this guy together, and this is probably the most complex individual character that I've so far introduced on my retrospective series. As per usual, I'll start from a bottom-up approach and we'll go through the individual components as we go, picking up bits and bobs and where I sourced bits from, what kits I got them from, and sort of take it from there really. So without further ado, let's make a start. It shouldn't come as any surprise that I sourced the legs of this model from the Iron Hands Iron Father model from Forge World. Not only did I use the legs, which look fantastic, extremely detailed, you've got that cog detail which is very iconic of Tech Marines, those that look after the ancient and reviled machines of the Horus Heresy, but also the arms, which again have that great tooth detailing, also belong to this kit, and the housing, the socket for that servo arm on his back as well was cut away from the same kit. It's a brilliant kit, filled with detail. Now this model actually hasn't been finished in terms of painting, but you can see where I've picked out that beautiful metallic detail there on those legs and on the arms. It's an absolute feast for the eyes, as it were. As for the servo skull on his belt, Now that is just a basic servo skull from, I believe, the Space Marine Devastators kit, the plastic 40k kit, and I've taken a Death Guard Legion symbol from one of the shoulder pads, dremeled the hell out of that from the back, and also extremely gently dremeled the inside of that, so I was able to fit that skull in quite nicely. Whether it's form or function, who knows? But as the story goes at the beginning, he does have a little cluster of servo skulls that help him see to his clutch of dreadnoughts on a day-to-day basis. So I like the idea of this maybe detaching itself from his belt and being one of those that sort of buzzes around the room and gives him a sort of a data link feed of how his brethren, his Ironform brethren, are doing. Now the little servo arms there, I thought that was also another little neat addition that sort of helps him on his day-to-day tasks. They are from, I believe, a sort of generic. They may even be from the Cataphren. They're called Cataphren destroyers. I'll edit this as I go to get the notes in as required, basically. But they're from the tracked heavy. I think they're a heavy unit in 40k, where you've got the slaved servitors there who bum around and take pot shots with some pretty devastating weaponry at the enemies that you're facing on the board. I thought that was a nice little addition there as well. The torso is from my beloved Death Shroud, Forge World Death Shroud, and what I've done there with the middle icon in the middle of the chest there, where you can see the Mechanicum crest, that cog with the skull in the middle. I've essentially drilled that out very, very gently and taken an icon from a plastic 40k Skitarii torso. I've cut that out very, very gently, and I've just embedded that in there. And I think that looks, again, it ties in with the Mechanicum training this guy would have gone through to best look after his interred brethren who have suffered 2 grievous wounds to just simply be taken care of in the apothecarian, so to speak. So I think that goes quite nicely. As well as the torso being from the Death Shroud, you'll notice that the shoulder pads are as well. Again, you've got that beautiful trim that will be, when finished, it'll be painted with that lovely sort of weathered brass there. And what I've done is I've taken 2 of the fan sort of outlet valves from a Mark II or Mark III resin backpack, and I've added those, sunk those into the middle of those little sort of details there as well. I believe they're called Bessigues. I had a chat with Macca fairly recently, and he corrected me with my terminology for that. So that's thanks for that, Macca. The Combi Volkite is from a limited edition. I believe it's a siege breaker. So in cataphractii armor, relatively difficult to get hold of. I think actually there are plenty of files and places you can get the equivalent of this kind of gun from Pop Goes the Monkey. I don't know if that's had a cease and desist anytime recently, but I know that I've seen 3D printed versions of this gun, not in abundance, but I don't think it's too difficult to get hold of down the line. Okay, so that's his gun. As for his corpusant stave, now this is a bit of a Frankenstein piece here. The main haft with that sort of diamond pattern grip, that will be from a Grey Knight's stave. Okay, I think I've had to take a couple of those and add them together to get the height there. As for the weight at the bottom, that will be from a Warhammer Fantasy, I believe like a Chaos kit. I couldn't tell you, again, those little weird old Warhammer Fantasy bits that are some of the hardest to actually nail down precisely where they're from, but I thought that counterweight worked quite nicely. Quite sinister with those diamond style spikes on the bottom there as well. The power pack at the top is just a generic power pack that you can get from a lot of different weapons. I think this one might be from a power axe, in fact. And then everything north of that is from the Forge World Grot tanks. It's one of their armaments that they have. They've got this really weird, almost like little Tesla weapon kind of thing. And what I've done there is I've added some additional detail. So I've inverted that little like sort of power coil there. There are those four stacks of what I've put as ceramic, okay, because I think this weapon is very much a sort of electro style stave or close combat weapon, and I've painted those up to be ceramic, as it were. The rest of the weapon is in that brass colour, and then the little piece at the top there with the little almost like a shock, what do you call it, like a cattle prod style thing, I've taken from a they're called, oh, what are they called now? It's a Mechanicum unit from one of the recent board games, the Blackstone Fortress board games. I'll put up the image and the name of them as this is as I'm talking about this right now. But I've just added that at the end there, just to add a little bit more detail, make it look like it's a weapon that's really capable of getting through sort of tanks, because this is a haywire weapon. So this is pretty nasty against light armor, certainly. And then the little black cables there, that's just very gently manipulated 1mm copper wire. Okay, so all of those components added together, I think they work rather well. The two little ceramic balls that are put there either side of that little shock, that cattle prod component of the stave there, they're just two very small plastic beads. Okay. Now the head of the model is from the Iron Hands head upgrade kit, which I think is a fantastic little kit. Mark III heads with all sorts of little detail, circuitry, bionics, cabling, all that kind of stuff there. And this is just the bare head option from that kit. Likewise, the servo arm on the right with that little grippy claw in black and yellow, the hazard stripes, that is from the Mark III Tech Marine from Forge World. Okay, again, beautiful kit, really chock full of detail there. And the left hand, or as we're looking at it, on the right with that buzzsaw and the little drill, that is from the Primaris Apothecary. Okay, however, with this, I've swapped out what was a little sort of, and again like a little cattle prod kind of electro weapon. I've changed that for one of the buzzsaws from an Adeptus Mechanicus Forge World servo automata, I believe they're called. So that's fit in rather nicely. Again, if this guy needs to run up and do some small repairs to one of his Ironform brethren, he's got all the tools he needs at his disposal to make sure that they are well taken care of. Okay. Now there are a couple of other components on here to go through very quickly, and those are the servo skulls on his belt at the back. Now these are both from the Forge World Pravian kit, okay, which is this little dude in a whole mix of different armor types, and he has a couple of servo skulls attached to him via some very fine cabling. And I thought, again, just with the story, I love the idea of this guy releasing like a little flock of servo skulls. I don't know what the collective term for servo skulls would be, but just releasing those up to get a much better image, better closer view of how his dreadnought companions are doing on the battlefield, so you can get a constant upload of information with how they're doing. Now the cabling under his arms, again, that's using the Greenstuff World tentacle or roll maker. I will always go on about how amazing this kit is. It really is. If you don't have it already, it's absolutely essential if you do any Warhammer really whatsoever. Even if you're doing some of the more biological, organic looking races like Tyranids, for example, I think you can get a really good effect overall. But this is just a nice little addition, just under those shoulder pads there, just to give you the impression that this guy really is very, very techie and spent quite a significant amount of time on Mars learning all the processes that he would need to know to best look after the ancients of the Legion, who were too damaged to simply get a sort of an organ graft or a bionic or something along those lines. So those that have been doomed to forever fight in the Emperor's name within a sarcophagus of a dreadnought, be it a Castroferum chassis or a sexy little boxnaut, or a Contemptor, a Quartus Contemptor, a Mortis. There's so many different designations out there. But gameplay-wise, I run this guy with 3 Quartus Contemptors because they are very, very fleet. I love the whole history behind the Quartus Contemptor, that it's a slightly more ramshackle, improvised style of Contemptor Dreadnought. But yeah, so far this guy has been a lot of fun to play, and I very much look forward to playing more games with him in future. In fact, I love the Mortificator so much that I'm planning on creating a second one when Games Workshop release the Primaris Tech Marine, which I will obviously heavily convert. I'll put a little image up of this guy as well. Really looking forward to its release. An absolutely stunning model, and I think that it would look absolutely badass to have a second one, potentially also in Tartarus armor, which I believe also mirrors the look of the Contemptor Dreadnought quite well as in addition. But having two of these guys, each with 3/4 Contemptors, would be a bit of an oh shit moment for a lot of opponents, I'm sure. Especially considering you don't really see an awful lot of Mortificators around, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, if you have any interest, have a look at Book 8. You've got the rules for them in there. They are an awful lot of fun to run. Now, in terms of the painting process with this guy, I'd say he's about 80 to 85% finished. None of the metals have been really started beyond the base colour, so I maybe have added a slight wash to the metals there, but I need to go back and go through those in an awful lot of detail. I also need to go back and do all the black and give that a highlight as well, and give the bone a little bit more depth there as well. In addition, I'll need to add some Rhinox hide scratches and do some sponge weathering in that as well, and again weather up the metal in addition. Finally, I just need to go over and do the leather for the handle, for the haft of his weapon there. All right, but there we go. So we have Grestmel Khol, who is the Mortificator Prime of the 14th Legion. Death to the false emperor!